Okay, happy days. So Triton is the map choice for game 2. So Ollie versus KernelPanic. KernelPanic, the Protoss in the bottom right. Ollie, the Protoss in the top left. So Ollie is 1-0 up. And no, what am I doing? It's the best of 3. Look at that. Loving it. Good. Yeah, so last game, yeah, some interesting stuff happening. A bit of a lack of detection on both sides. Interestingly, both sides ended up with not dissimilar tech if you chose the right point in the game to look. Both of them had sort of dark shrines and things like that. But in the end, Ollie just managed to overwhelm his opponent with numbers, despite not being able to see those DTs. You could argue that the DTs could have been made better use of, better value could have been got from them. Hang on, Ollie is not 2-0 up, not yet. What have I done? There we go. But anyway, that was the last game. This is this game. I am very pleased to see that both players have got workers out on the map for presumably some sort of scouting purposes. That does cheer me up. I like it. So it's going to be KernelPanic that is going to come and have a quick peek. Sees that his opponent is walling off on the low ground here, and this worker very much looks like it is up to no good. This over here is a good location for a proxy, just round the corner. But is it going to be a proxy? I don't know. Or is he looking for somewhere? Looks like he's trying some sort of cannon rush. The forge is finished at home, so cannon rush ahoy. Meanwhile, where did the worker... There he is. There's the worker for Ollie. Is also going to have a little peek around the place. I don't know why I popped that up. You've got APMs down in the bottom here, should we need them. So, both players with a worker in each other's base. This worker, it's Ollie that drops the pylon. Hasn't seen the forge for his opponent. Not yet anyway. KernelPanic does have the forge, but has chosen not to cannon rush. Ollie, what have you got in mind? KernelPanic knows that this worker's here. I like this. So he's seen that the worker is about the place. Did he just recall that worker home?
Pylons.
I think he did. That seems a little unnecessary. I know it's a longish walk, but I think the worker would have been fine. So this pylon is just going to go to waste. The Zealot can work out on it, and eventually that pylon's going to go down. KernelPanic, you are A, supplies blocked, and you don't have any pylons in production. B, got rather a lot of money in the bank, so I'd love to see the Nexus come down here, because your opponent's got a Nexus up, and since there's no real sign that you're about to put pressure on your opponent, they will very quickly take a big advantage in this game if you don't sort of drop your own Nexus very, very sharpish indeed, or start dropping gateways so that you can go and apply an awful lot of pressure and sort of punish them for going for that slightly more economic opening, which by the looks of things is going to turn out hard to do. Ollie's setting up defensively here, so there's going to be a small choke point that you'd have to funnel in through to get into the base, and this will ultimately be a relatively easy location to defend. So I'm not really much... Look, still supply blocked, KernelPanic. How are you allowing this to happen? There's been nothing in your production tab for quite some time now, and I'm slightly concerned. That was, I don't know, a solid minute or so between becoming supply blocked and actually building a pylon. I find that a bit disturbing. I'm not sure what you were doing. You don't have any units out on the map, so perhaps it just drifted off into a mild evening doze. Meanwhile, Ollie does have a slightly more full production tab. We've got Warp Gate being researched. The Forge is coming down. Now, despite this very early Forge for KernelPanic, there's no upgrades being researched just yet, and no Warp Gate being researched. And if you're an aspiring Protoss player just learning how to get to grips with Protoss race, Warp Gate is pretty much the first upgrade you get. It just means that instead of queuing up or whatever, instead of your gateways working roughly the same way as barracks do, you can just sort of warp in units reasonably quickly at any location powered by a pylon. If the pylon is powering a gateway, it's a very quick warp in, and then there's a sort of recharge time. So it's a really useful thing to be able to do. This worker's going to be able to get in and have a look around, and I like this. Unfortunately, this sort of scouting path that he took boxed him in that corner just for long enough to die. So he didn't get inside the main to have a look. Not that he would have seen anything interesting, but I like that he was trying. You know, because you never know. Maybe you go into the main and you see that dark shrine and you go, oh my goodness, it's a dark shrine. Watch while I build cannons everywhere. Or not. So the expo is in construction for KernelPanic. You can see that that is going to be done fairly shortly. And also Stargate play, it looks like, is going to be coming out. So the Stargate's finished up, nothing building from it just yet. KernelPanic doesn't have the gas for it. Let's find out why is that. These are saturated. What's he spent all the gas on, I wonder? Not zealots. I don't know. Maybe these have not been saturated long. I'm not sure where his gas has gone, really. A couple of stalkers isn't much. Yeah. Anyway, Void Rays building. You know, the recent patch has meant that if you get the speed upgrade for Void Rays, I can't remember its official name, they're disturbingly fast, and you can put a lot of hurt on a person with the Void Rays these days. You can dive in, you can snipe things and run away again without really losing anything. You know, they found in the pro game Void Rays were very underused, so they've introduced this upgrade for them to make them speed rays, and they are really quick. So the Twilight finishes up for Ollie. And we'll shortly, I think, see whether that is going to be for upgrades, whether that's going to be for getting charge for the Zealots, Blink for the Stalkers, or whatever. It is, and we see charge in production, and that's all good. As it turns out, since his opponent is going Stargate, Blink Stalkers might be the more useful option. You can see that the fleet beacon is coming down here, so KernelPanic has probably got carriers in mind. Potentially Tempests, but probably carriers. Or it could be for the Void Ray upgrade that I mentioned. But there's nothing... The reason I'm kind of ruling that out is because there isn't another Void Ray in production. If you were going to be playing a Void Ray build, you'd think you'd be building Void Rays. With all of that said, he's still very short in gas. I like that he's put an extra one in each to get more gas. That isn't going to work. That's not going to get you any more. Arguably, the reason we're short on gas, this was pretty lit. The expo was pretty lit. By 7 minutes, really, you want to have your third up and mining. You know, if you have 6 gases, if you're mining from 6 gases, then you can certainly afford to be building Void Rays out of a couple of Stargates and upgrading them, etc. So it is going to be Void Rays, so maybe it was just he was waiting to have enough gas. But then you could argue that he didn't really need to go ahead and build a fleet beacon if he didn't have the gas to build the Void Rays, because it's quite expensive. I think it's 200 gas to build a fleet beacon. It's not a cheap thing. Still pumping out some Stalkers, and if we look at the army composition on the other side of the map, there are a few Stalkers here, actually quite a few Stalkers from Ollie. So I'd really like to see, oh there it is, look. I'd like to see Blink, because if you are up against something like Speed Voids, you can't catch them, but of course if you blink underneath them, you can do damage to them. So that is enough Stalkers that if you blink under a single Void Ray and focus one Void Ray, you might be able to one-shot it. You might. Certainly with the ones that are warping in, you should be able to one-shot a Void Ray with that many Stalkers, I think. So you've got a pretty reasonable chance of being able to kill those. So air weapons being researched by Ollie, which is curious, because he doesn't have a Stargate as far as I can tell. So he's either future-proofing and thinking late game, I'm gonna transition to Stargate and I'll already have the upgrades, or this is just some sort of bizarre mistake. There's the Void Ray speed upgrade in production. Still so light on gas though that with 2 Stargates and neither of them actually doing any producing. So really, KernelPanic, you need another base. I'd love for there to be shield batteries here because it would make this an easier hold. As it stands, this is going to be pretty close, I feel. Let's zoom in on the action and see what's going on here. If these Stalkers are focusing other stalkers down one at a time. KernelPanic should hold this. The speed voids, he hasn't hit the prismatic alignment, and the speed void rays do go down. The shield batteries that aren't here could have made a really big difference to this. There's no warp gate upgrade, so there's no way he's going to be able to reinforce. He's got a Q in this, and I think not enough is going to happen here. This Void Ray can potentially focus down quite a lot of the Zealot, but ultimately these Stalkers with Blink can just blink under that. Look how fast it goes, look at it. That isn't broken at all. Unfortunately, it takes a flight path that never moves it out of range of the Stalkers, but wasn't it fast? Wasn't it fast and glorious while it was flying along there? So it looks like Ollie's just going to manage to brute force this. These Stalkers just able to come in and focus everything down that flies, and oh, the Void Ray just gets out. So this Void Ray, can potentially outrange these by like dancing backward and forward, but not if he does that. So there are literally no units left for KernelPanic, and this is surely the end. Ollie manages to depower everything. These gateways that have Zealots half built aren't going to ever get those Zealots out, and even if they did come out, Zealots against, oh my goodness, the Mama ship, unfortunately the Stalkers are going to be able to focus that down reasonably quickly, but I like it because it just cloaks everything. You can't kill it if you can't see it, so that's kind of cool. It would have been pretty slick when the Mama came out, when the Mama ship came out, to send a worker underneath it cloaked to drop a pylon to try and repower these things. That would have been cute, but it wouldn't really have changed anything. So GG, Ollie wins 2-0, and it is KernelPanic that will go on to play against the second place in the lower bracket, while Ollie secures his place in the quarterfinals. GG.